Hey guys, Josh Horowitz here. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel where I talk to the greatest actors and filmmakers in the world, including this guy, Ralph Macchio.
Wow, greatest in the world.
I'm just saying that because this conversation is so amazing.
Awesome. You gotta button this up for now.
Ralph, do you think they should hit subscribe?
I think they should do that right now.
Listen to this man, buy his book, do the right thing, and watch our conversation.
Hello, Symphony Space. Hello, Upper West Side. How you guys doing tonight? I am indeed Josh Horowitz. Thanks so much for coming out tonight, guys. I am a born and bred Upper West Sider. This is my home base, so it means a lot to be at Symphony Space with you guys and in this beautiful theater. We have an amazing guest tonight, guys, for this live Happy, Sad, Confused. There is a lot of history to cover tonight. Wow, from Coppola and The Outsiders to The Karate Kid, from Cobra Kai to beyond. This guy is the ageless wonder that is Mr. Ralph Macchio, of course, and his new book, I should mention, which is excellent. If you've not picked it up, you need to, is Waxing On, The Karate Kid and Me. We're gonna divulge all the secrets, nearly 40 years of secrets for the Karate Kid in this book. I think it's safe to say that nobody as big, I remember when the movie came out initially, as I'm sure many of you do, it was a phenomenon, but who could imagine it would have the long legs it has? It's bigger than ever in some ways. So this is a thrill to get to meet Ralph tonight in this context. Please give a big Symphony Space welcome to the one and only Mr. Ralph Macchio.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Well, someone's tearing up already. It's not me yet.
Discuss amongst yourselves, we're gonna be fine.
We're gonna all get through this together, guys.
Awesome to be here in the greatest city in the world. Thank you, guys.
Just a couple born and bred New Yorkers talking movies for an hour. This is gonna be fun tonight, man. Thanks for taking the time out, and congratulations on this book. This is quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. It's 38 years in the making and 2 years in the writing process, and you give birth and it's out there in the world, and the response has been awesome, and it's great to see everyone sort of rallying behind these stories that are such a big part of my life, and sort of walking in the shoes of a character that has become a big part of so many people's lives. So it's really kind of unique in that way.
And it's amazing to read not only the stories, but your journey with this character and the ups and downs of any career. But first I want to talk about the fact that you are a New Yorker, and this is home for you. Talk to me a little bit about your upbringing. You're a Long Island kid. You're still a Long Island kid.
Still in Long Island. Capital G. I grew up in the town of Huntington area. My parents are still there, God bless, in their 80s. They're married and wonderful, and they created this thing. It was mom, dad, my younger brother, Steve. Kind of working class-ish family, but my dad was a self-made man, started out as my uncle, his uncle had a laundromat, and then my dad had a laundromat, and then that was sort of like the cash flow in the early business, and then the cesspools would overflow from the soapy water, and then he bought a pump truck, and then he built that into a pump truck business, and then some real estate and other things, and so I worked at the laundromat. That was the first job. That's where the segue was. I worked at the laundromat giving change, and fortunately there was a movie theater at the end of the shopping center, so I would sneak into the movie. No, I'd pay for tickets and go to the movies. Although one time I realized if you climb across from the top of the laundromat, like you go up in the attic thing and you could walk across the other stores, I was able to see the screen from the corner. But then I said, this is not really
as
a
it's
movie.
intended, no.
You know,
It's like
that's
watching on
that's
an
my
iPhone.
14-year-old like adventurous self. But so and movies was where, you know, as a you know, in between the Saturdays at the laundromat and working in Little League baseball and wanting to be Tom Seaver or whatever at that time. Any Mets fans in the house? All right. Any Yankee fans in the house? Well, they're both playing golf tomorrow, so. But anyway, so I would, when I was, you know, coming home from school as a little kid, and I write to this in the early part of the book, my mom would have on what was the 4:30 movie, Channel 11. I'd watch, you know, it would be Casablanca, it would be Singing in the Rain, it would be Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and that was, you know, so that was the early stages of me becoming infatuated with storytelling, and I wanted to be Gene Kelly as a kid.
I will say, reading the book, nothing connected me more to you than reading about WPIX and Entenmann's Donuts. I just felt like
there is definitely Entenmann's
shared genetic material with this man in some way. So a lover of movies, a lover of musicals, but as you just talked about, your family was not clearly in the business.
No.
So what did they make of young Ralph's interest in the arts?
I think my mom, she had such a, I remember hearing about Betty Grable all the time. She loved Betty Grable, right? So we're, you know, for the youngsters out there, you gotta look it up. But, so I think there was a piece of my mom, because she could sing and she could sing well. I think there was a piece of her that she never did that, but it was not crushing on. It was not like she you know, didn't fulfill her dream or anything like that. So when I asked to take, oh no, my cousins were taking tap dance lessons. They felt, you know, for the reason of, you know, social, getting, you know, getting involved with whether it was Little League or dance classes, you know, just social activity. So I went into that, and I didn't suck. I wasn't awesome, but I hit my mark, I smiled, and even then I looked a few years younger than I was. So I probably looked better at it than I was, because like, this kid's 5, he's amazing. I was 16. No, not true. Not true.
It's a miracle.
Anyway, that's a bit of a spread. Exaggeration for effect, folks. But you know,
found early success? I mean, did you find like one job immediately led to another?
No,
or
at that
not really?
point it was just fun,
Yeah.
you know, and I enjoyed the thrill of the footlights, like I still do, even right now. I was back there waiting for the announcement, and I was getting all excited because this feels like home, being on stage, you know. So, and I realized I was never going to be Tom Seaver. You know, I did not have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. So, what my parents thought, I mean, I think my dad was a bit like, okay, this is a phase, you know, but it wasn't until high school, really. I was in the plays in high school and such, but always like, you know, third guy in the back on the left, never, you know, never Sky Masterson or Nathan Detroit. I was like, I actually played Harry the Horse in Guys and Dolls in high school. And Harry the Horse was Sheldon Leonard, like this big, massive, he was a big TV producer, but he's totally miscast. But and then I had a tap number in the middle of Luck Be a Lady or something. But so it was part of me, but and sports as well. Right. I really enjoyed sports and my sports teams in New York. So you know, it was high school time when I went in for an audition and got this Bubble Yum commercial. Wound up doing 2 of them. You could see them on YouTube. Totally embarrassing, but fun. Singing, dance. It was a Saturday morning, you know, big smiles, over-exaggerated, you know, animated.
Sure.
Sugar Bubble Gum commercial. That was the first.
There's a lot of sugar in that gum.
Yes. Big wads of it. And I had, you know, they sent me a box. I had tons of bubble gum. It's amazing I have teeth right now. So that's sort of what started. And I would audition here and there before the movies, before I got my first movie.
And the first films, correct me if I'm wrong, it's funny because I just saw this documentary, which is excellent, about Robert Downey
Yeah, I'm
Sr.
dying to see that documentary. I just gave them, they wanted to use a clip, and I had to give sign off on that.
You're in the documentary. So there's a documentary about the great Robert Downey Sr., who, for those that don't know, was this iconoclastic filmmaker who I believe directed your first film.
Yeah, he did. He did. He had these underground, New York underground films like Greaser's Palace and Putney Swope in the 60s. Did a lot of drugs in his time, was a maverick, but really, truly a filmmaker. And his first movie was a studio movie called Up the Academy. It was the first, movie job I got. And I played, it was sort of right after Animal House had hit. So they were looking, where Animal House was National Lampoon. This was Warner Brothers, but they were tagging in Mad Magazine for some reason. Right. They figured, they work for National Lampoon, let's do it, it's like decisions based on no merit whatsoever. But the character's name was Chooch Bombalazzi.
Very realistic.
So he was the son of a mobster, and they were very stereotypical characters. Each character today this thing would be blasted. This was like Archie Bunker on steroids, So, and it was we went to Weinberg Military Academy, and it was just the misadventures of misguided youth, and so that. But it got me to the next one. And
so at this point, were you studying acting, or was it all an instinct?
No, that's a great question, because I really kind of started studying acting after I was in it for a little bit, when I realized maybe I should learn how to do this. I was cast for a look, and like I said, I looked younger than my age, so I could play 16 and be 19 or 20. Right. So, and I played 16 for, I think, 37 years. Yes. I got 1 million of them, folks. But so what happened was the next thing was there was a talent casting thing for ABC television. Right. And I wound up getting seen in New York, and I was put into a show called 8 is Enough. Mm-hmm. And a little Oz from the crowd. 8 is Enough was a TV show that had like canned laughter. It was an hour family dramedy, if you will. And I was 9 was too many. There's my next joke. But I did 21 episodes of that show, and it was wonderful to learn. And the great Dick Van Patten was sort of like a father figure, and helped me to sort of understand the daily grind of doing a TV show, and sort of understanding my place in the ensemble, and so that was that, and then the next one was the big break, the big movie break.
So we have to talk about, yes, Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, many actors go, yes. I mean, you count on one or two hands the great American auteurs, and Coppola is one of them. Yes. And of course, this great ensemble, The Outsiders. So when this comes around, he clearly was collecting just the best talent in this age group at the time, and bringing in a lot of very talented actors, a lot of them together in the same room, as I understand it. What are your recollections of the uniqueness of that process? Because every aspect of the way Coppola directs and rehearses sounds very unique. Yeah,
Francis was very into the theater camp element of getting a group together and working with actors, especially young actors like us. I mean, the audition process, it's been documented how unique and difficult it was, because every actor was in one room watching the other actor try out, which is really unnerving, because you're trying not to listen to the other actor read a scene a certain way, and you're trying not to look at the director to see if he's responding positively, because then you wind up acting by number, painting by numbers, and it was tough not to do that, and tough to say, boy, he really likes him, he's, I'm screwed, and, it gets inside your head. But Francis was, his theory was to mix and match, give me a Dennis Quaid and a Patrick Swayze and a Mickey Rourke and Ralph Macchio. Okay, wait, let's go with Helen Slater and and Tom Cruise and Scott Baio, and he would just put all these pieces together. If you can imagine, those are the names that were all in this room. Yeah. Because before they were those names that might have been recognizable, but and I wanted to only play Johnny Cade. I read that book when I was 12 years old in 7th grade, and I just love that book. I literally 4 days ago, maybe 5, I don't remember, because I've been on this book tour, which has been amazing and gratifying. But I was sitting with S.E. Hinton, basically right there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, doing something like this.
Amazing.
Years later. And
so surreal, yeah.
I was able, to speak. It was author to author, which was really nice and quite wonderful. But so anyway, so then, and I got the part of Johnny Kid. I mean, it was like my first big, huge, massive victory. It was the dream come true with one of the greatest filmmakers, like you said, of our time, American cinema, certainly. But to spin back a second to your question of when I started studying acting, it was when I first auditioned for The Outsiders before the group audition. I auditioned for Fred Roos, which was Francis's producer, and he cast The Godfather and American Graffiti. If you know anything about these films, some of the greatest casts ever assembled. But I did not get it. I did not get a second call back. I wasn't kind of ready, is what the feedback was. And that's when I started taking acting classes in LA at the Beverly Hills Playhouse at the time. And I used one of the scenes from The Outsiders as a scene study scene, the hospital scene.
That brings us, of course, to The Karate Kid. So, like I said, the stories in this book are fascinating, and let's just get right to it. The funny thing is, the story of your involvement in this film actually begins pretty close by, across the park, on the Upper East Side.
Yes, 80-something Street, I always say. I think it was, I have to go back there to see if I can remember which building is John's building.
Right.
John Avildsen, the great director of Rocky and The Karate Kid.
Another audition at the time? What was it? Give me some context.
No, I write to this in the book. I got a call, that they were making a movie called The Karate Kid, and I was like, is it a cartoon? After school special? It's such a cheeseball title. It shows you what I knew. Maybe I knew I'd be carrying it for the rest of my life. That's what I probably. And it was John Avildsen, and Rocky was a big part of my childhood, and I saw that movie, like 8 times in a row in the movie theater. Ran anytime I saw his steps, I'd run up to the top of them and do my Rocky imitation. So I was. And it was to read with the director, and so, which was awesome, and I felt like, well, maybe because The Outsiders, I had some nice reviews in that. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe I'm meeting with the director. I don't have to go through all the hoop jumping. I write insert record scratch here, because I walk into John's apartment building, and I get up to the floor where his apartment is, and it's packed with every possible teenage guy you could imagine. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be waiting online like the rest of them. And he was reading with, he had a big video camera, and you could see this on YouTube. He actually posted my first reading of Daniel LaRusso, and you can find it on YouTube, as well as Pat Morita's and my first meeting with Elizabeth Shue. These videotapes, he posted them. So it's really fun, and I like to brag that my book comes with visual aids.
First memories of working with him on set. I mean, like, are the cliches true? Like, do you feel like, oh, there's a connection there, oh, there's something special, or was this another job at that point?
No, what I can say, and I do write to this as well, is when I first met Pat, there was, I was standing outside the door to head in, and I had my script under my arm, and I knew the scene we were going to read, so I felt pretty good about it, but I just kept thinking that, it was Tuesday nights on ABC, and I was going to walk in there, and he was going to go, Fonzie, bah, ha, 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 ha. I thought that it was going to be, like I was actually typecasting him, which the irony, and I write to this, is that I was, on the on-deck circle of having to deal with some typecasting of my own in years to come, not too many years to come after that. But, and when I walked in there, and Arnold from Happy Days was nowhere to be found, his articulation, his diction was letter perfect. He was very serious about talking about Japanese heritage and culture and the meanings behind the words and his own family. And then we started reading the scene, and it was just as easy as anything I'd ever done. And I didn't know it at that point. I just knew it was easy. I didn't know that it necessarily was great chemistry or all that other stuff. I was probably too young to understand that, or to. I mean, I don't. All I remember is how effortless and simple and easy. I didn't have to work. It was like the give and take, like a perfect tango. And it was, beautifully written script. So that needs to be said. If it's not on the page, ain't on the stage, as they say. But it was elevated by what was clearly the two actors that were meant to be together in these roles. And it was right after that we did a quick screen test for the studio, and that was it. And that's all everyone talked about, was how, oh, you guys are amazing together. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm reading my part, he's reading his part. But there was such a genuine affinity for each other.
Yeah.
And that is, that you feel in the performance, that you see in those scenes, that, I write about the line, "You're the best friend I ever had," being my favorite line in the original Karate Kid movie. It's probably not the coolest line or the best piece of dialogue, but it was just perfectly placed in the script and delivered. I'll give myself credit for that. And then his response, even more so, when he says, "You pretty okay too." And that's kind of Ralph and Pat and Daniel and Miyagi, the blurred lines of that, what still resonates to this day.
It's funny, yeah. I mean, someone said in an interview recently, like, films are either A's or B's. Like, they just work or they don't work. And Karate Kid it's one of those films that just works on every conceivable level. It's emotional, it's funny, it just draws you in, and it's a marriage of everything. It's the acting, it's the score, and it's just impossible not to embrace it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it does start with the script, but it's all the components, and especially that film, and to this day resonates, and because it works on a human level as well. The themes in the Karate Kid are the themes, as much as the tone is different in Cobra Kai, and I'm sure we're going to get there. As much as the tone is different, the themes are the same, and it's grounded in what made the Karate Kid something that stood the test of time. And then the pop culture of it all became something else, to get him a body bag and sweeping the legs and catching flies with chopsticks, and it's insane.
You do embrace a lot of the so-called controversies over the years. For instance, let's get a show of hands. Was the crane kick legal? Do you think it was legal or not? Yes, legal?
Yeah.
No, illegal? It's kind of a split decision. Okay.
I like it. Listen, I always say this. If you're still debating about a movie that was made 84 years, in 1984, 38 years ago, I don't look that good. If they're still talking about it, that's pretty amazing.
It is.
And, it's fun. Yes, that's in my chapter called Theories and Debates. Right. And the birth of Cobra Kai,
Okay, this sets off, and we don't obviously have time to go through every beat of the career, but there is an interesting next 5 or 6 year period coming off of Karate Kid that are extreme highs, and then some frustrations that come after it, clearly. Because around Karate Kid 2, which is a huge hit. I mean, I remember that Peter Cetera song, I will never get out of my brain. That was everywhere. And then you're on Broadway. You're on Broadway with Robert De Niro.
Yes.
So it must have felt like, put me in your shoes back then. Did it feel like you were riding high?
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy busy time. That was. I had a film called Crossroads. If you're a musician, people really like Crossroads. It's got some great music, and the great Steve Vai. Walter Hill directed that film. Directed films like 48 Hours. And so I was very excited to make that movie. It came out in the spring of '86, and then the Karate Kid Part 2 came out in the summer of '86. I was on Broadway at the Longacre Theater with Robert De Niro and Burt Young, and it was That was my Beatles leaving Shea Stadium summer. Like every time I came out, I had a security bring me into. It was like just crazy time. Meanwhile, when I got left the theater, I would go to Shea Stadium to watch the '86 Mets. So it was like everything was happening at that point, you know. Yeah. And it's an interesting time because it was moving really fast. There's a great story in here. I don't want to go into too much detail because I want you guys really to read it. When I was, there's a great Warren Beatty story. He comes in to see Cuba and his Teddy Bear, which is the play I did with De Niro, and everyone came to see that play. I was on Broadway with De Niro, so it was amazing. If I could turn back time, and to take things in stride at that age, when everything, it's tough to do. As you get older, you're like, I should have smelled the roses a little bit more. But there was a time I was frustrated at the end of that run when they were setting up Karate Kid Part 3, and I really didn't want to make the movie. I didn't even know what the script was, but there were other movies that were there and with some great directors that I might have had a chance at that I couldn't. Sidney Lumet was the one filmmaker that I was talking to. Yeah, I was starting to get frustrated with all this, with the connection to Karate Kid and the sort of the typecasting that was happening and the fact that I couldn't offset it with. I mean, doing the Broadway play was awesome, but that wasn't a movie. It was only reaching a certain amount of people. So there's a great story where Warren Beatty was. I didn't think he had any plans of mentoring me or offering advice, but he basically did about how, you know, I shouldn't downplay the commercial successes because they give you the opportunity for some of the artistic risks that you want to take. And it was just a poignant moment, and it's really a nice story in the book.
So coming off of Karate Kid 3, which, as you said, was a bit of a disappointing creative experience for you, did you feel like there was any chance in hell you were ever going to play this character again?
No way. No, but coming off if you told me that in 2022 I would be squaring off with Terry Silver,
what drugs
and
are
the
in your
beauty
system?
of that is, and I write to this as well. You know, even what's so amazing about the Karate Kid franchise and the Karate Kid universe is that it's been blessed more than once. Where even the shortcomings, in my view, have now bear fruit, and health insurance, thank you, because I'm working, going forward. So it's kind of like, be careful what you think you know. Yeah. And that's just a little message for, you know, through me walking in these shoes, youth is wasted on the young. You don't see that, but it's maybe a young reader may, look at that, and I'm getting a lot of these questions. So now that Cobra Kai season 4 and 5 was so pulled off of a lot of what was in Karate Kid Part 3, do you like the movie now? And I'm like, no, it's still not a good movie, in my view. Wonderful actors, great people, but my biggest problem with Karate Kid 3 is that it never forwarded the Daniel LaRusso character, and it abandoned the two love stories from Karate Kid Part 2, meaning Miyagi's love story and Daniel and Kumiko's story, which was just sort of like, that didn't happen. Now we're going back to the valley and there's more Cobra Kai, but who knew, man? It's just pretty eye-opening. And one of the many reasons I dove into writing the book, because I have this uniqueness of this movie that is such a big part of so many people's lives that is now relevant today. It's never gone away, but more relevant with the explosion of Cobra Kai, that I have 12 and 13-year-old kids who run up to me and they know who Mr. Miyagi is. And that's kind of wonderful that legacy carries on, and they somehow back themselves into the original film from the series and vice versa.
So in the many years between 3 and Cobra Kai, I know your relationship with Karate Kid must have been a complex one. It had its ups and downs and wrestled with how you felt about it. And it's funny because, again, as I'm reading the book, I'm like, oh my God, he must have been offered every crazy idea for a reboot or sequel. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I bet they had a a Rocky Karate Kid combo thing, and then I'm reading the book, and someone pitched you a Rocky Karate Kid thing.
It's crazy. It's great. There was so many. I tap into some of the funniest or silliest or ridiculous reboot concepts over in the late 90s. I mean, after My Cousin Vinny,
right.
Which was I affectionately call the late for dinner movie, because when it's on, you're just going to be late for dinner because you just can't leave in the middle of it. I got more than lucky a handful of times when you think of that. Karate Kid and Outsiders and Vinny, it's really quite remarkable. It wasn't a large chunk of time, but...
So did that idea that was presented to you hold any interest? Is that the worst idea ever? Or the best idea
that's
ever?
That's just the funniest idea, because I was with John Avildsen, the director, and this was probably, I would say... is the Hilary Swank Karate Kid, the next Karate Kid had come and gone at that point.
Yeah.
But we were having a lunch meeting of a potential idea for a project, and it was pitched by a writer, I mean, he just had this vision, like, there's the guy who directed Rocky and the Karate Kid. I have him here, and there's the Karate Kid guy. If I could just get Stallone has a messed up kid. The Karate Kid has a messed up kid. You get Mickey and Miyagi together, somewhere between Philly and Newark, and this thing is going to be the biggest movie ever. Now, what's so funny is John sort of laughed it off. He said, you don't cross. It's so funny. Now you got Superman sleeping with Batman, and Wonder Woman is best friends with the Hulk, and it's unbelievable. The multiverses, there's 3 Spider-Mans at once. So it kind of was ahead of its time, and who knows? Someone may pull this and they'll get both of us in, walkers and wheelchairs in 5 years making. But it was just it was everything that was right and wrong about Hollywood in that moment. It was like, how can we fit a square peg in a round hole? And then there were other ones about, you have a kid with a drug problem, and Miyagi's a ghost, and, but I think, and I affectionately write about this in the book, that it was less about people saying, hey, I have the greatest idea, and more about them saying, I love this character, I loved you in this character, I loved Pat in his role, and Elizabeth Shue, and all I want more.
Yes.
I want more. It was, and unfortunately, decades later, John, Josh, and Hayden, the creators of Cobra Kai, the 3 biggest Karate Kid fans you will ever meet, figured out a way to give us more, and it feel fresh and contemporary and relevant and still nostalgic at the same time.
It's a miracle of a series, because it's like, these guys, John, Josh, and Hayden, like, their resume didn't necessarily scream like, oh, they're going to be the right guys to do this necessarily.
No. They wrote and created Hot Tub Time Machine and Harold and Kumar. And they were saying the guys who created, and they're fantastic writers across the board. They are the reason Cobra Kai is what it is. They drive the ship. They see it more clearly than anyone, certainly more than me and Billy Zabka, because we're so protective. But they
did you get it immediately, the pitch? Like, because you were, as I understand it, kind of the last one in.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, I always was. I kept the Karate Kid film on such a pedestal that it was like, it's not high art, but it's a film. I've gotten so much from you guys over the decades on how much this has meant, that to sort of soil that or toy with it in a way that would take the shine off the apple, it felt like I'd rather leave the painting alone instead of trying to add more colors to it. But imagine me getting a call saying, the guys who created Harold and Kumar and Hot Tub Time Machine want to pitch you the continuing story of the Karate Kid. I was like, okay, rated R stoner comedies and, coming of age stories.
Well, not to mention, like, it's a pretty magnanimous gesture for you, who's been so protective of this character, to kind of embrace what had become now like this like fun meme and fan theory over the years.
Right.
That Daniel LaRusso was maybe kind of a dick, kind of an asshole.
Yeah. No, they definitely heightened that, his sort of cocky kind of bravado that I brought into the room when I auditioned. I mean, even when you saw that tape, and I'm just kind of sitting there like this, I had a little bit of like, my crap don't stink. I'm pretty awesome. And it's kind of funny. That was me trying to be cool. I have nothing to back it up. But that element of LaRusso is peppered in the character, but what also is at the foundation of LaRusso is his sweet, genuine goodness. He even today in the Cobra Kai series, his intentions are always good. Right. He just sometimes is knee jerk and he lets his temper flare, and obviously that makes for better entertainment. So yeah, it was sort of a leap for me to when they said he's going to be a car salesman. I was like, really? He became a car salesman? Well, Mr. Miyagi had cars. That was their pitch. I said, all right, I get that. Okay. Sure. All right. But I don't know if he would, live off his one kick and rub it in the face of everybody. They said, well, yeah, but that's just going to be the beginning. So they really had to, win me over with that stuff. My main thing was that the spirit of Miyagi would have to be woven throughout the Cobra Kai series. Otherwise, I wouldn't be interested. I really needed to have his character part of the show, be it for the next generation younger cast and the sort of Miyagi-Do element, that mystical, it's not even mystical, that palpable mentor to him. And so then it made sense that LaRusso, without Miyagi, would have his midlife crisis where he would lose his balance and not see things clearly. And obviously, you need conflict, otherwise you don't have a story going forward. And these guys, they cared so much, and I believed they wanted to make what the fans would love to see. Yeah. And the film Creed had just come out. And so that was an example of how to enter the Rocky Balboa universe and not have to make Rocky 7, right? So it was through the eyes of Apollo Creed's son. So through the eyes of Johnny Lawrence, whatever happened to this bully and whatever happened to his life, and that they obviously wanted to juxtapose that with the happily ever after. LaRusso had everything, and he has money, and he's now in Encino, and then the other guy's in Reseda, down and out. And so I got it, and I understood it. I just didn't know how it was going to truthfully work. And I would say, where's the funny in it? Where's the heart in it? And they say, they just convinced me with their caring so much for every nook and cranny of that original film and those movies that these were the guys to take the leap with. And now I look, incredibly intelligent when I'm pretty damn lucky once again. But, I did make the decision. I did. Yeah. And they delivered something that was above and beyond everything. And the low expectations, too, of the YouTube of it all. And they're going to do a Karate Kid thing with Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso. People were like, yeah, okay, this is going to be like Good Pain at the dentist. This thing is going to be just like a disaster, but I won't be able to look away. And all those low expectations helped us because when it had all and everything and still embraced and respected the source material, which was the original film, then it was 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everybody was on board.
A couple billion minutes of watch time later.
Minutes, yeah.
And one of the relationships that this rests on, just as it was you and Pat way back when, is you and Billy. Let's take a look. I'm sure this audience has seen Cobra Kai, but this is one of the very first scenes in the first season that sets up, I think it's the reintroduction of you guys getting together at the a car dealership. Let's take a look.
Zabka is just so good in this show, man. We have such chemistry together, and it just really is such a joy, and I think it elevates. And every season when we have scenes together, it just goes to another level. That one was, I had to say the line, "I kicked his face." Initially, I read it in the script. I'm like, guys, come on. You are setting it up. I get it. Okay, we want to say Johnny Lawrence. Tough life. What would be the worst thing that someone could say to him? So I went back and forth, and I did, because there's always a push-pull, and I write about this as well, with me and the writers with that stuff, certainly earlier in the seasons, less so now, because I would always say, you know, I want to make sure you're thinking of the LaRusso of it all, that, you know, how far we're going to bend that to him actually being a guy that would say either something like that. So it was about me finding it, that it was like playful with his friends. It's almost like sometimes you're with someone, you say something and you regret saying it, but then at that point you might as well just go with it. So that's sort of how it was like one of those things that maybe that night LaRusso would be laying in bed and probably say, well, I probably shouldn't have said that. That was probably a dick thing to say. But in the moment, he has his buddies there. And so we're always working and collaborating through those moments. And they're important because I think then the scenes work organically and then we care, you know.
It must be so cool that you and Billy get to go on this journey together, decades now. I reached out to Billy Zabka to see if he had something to say to you. He sent a video in.
Oh, God. Okay, let's see if he's going to regret what he says.
Let's take a look.
For the first time, as the anticipation of the crane kick loomed around the corner, the swell of excitement was palpable. Conti's music built, Avildsen's edits elevated, LaRusso assumes the position.
All right, that's enough for now. Hey, you doing there, Ralphie? What's up, everybody? Hey, Josh. Honored to be with you here on the stage. I just finished this unbelievable book, this retelling of amazing legacy in life and film, and I was a part of a lot of this, but I learned so much from it as well. Ralph, well done. I'm so excited that you're out promoting this. I was there while you were hiding away writing this over the last year or two, and it's fantastic, buddy. So just can't wait to read it again. I have a couple questions for you while we're here. Question number one would be, who between us would you say during the films we were doing in the 80s had better hair? That's the first question. Secondly, to follow that up, currently we've done a couple duets on Cobra Kai, singing Eye of the Tiger and an REO Speedwagon song, and I'm just curious to your ear, which one of us carries a better tune? So there's the questions. I'll let you have at it. Take it from here. It's nice to drop in. I'm going to get back to my reading.
I could feel the dam about to burst.
Listening, reading.
A thunderous roar from the Baronet crowd as they leapt to their feet, cheering and hugging and high-fiving as if at a major league sporting event.
All right, that's enough.
It was
That's enough.
Great job. Awesome. I'll hit him up later for that. All right, so what were his questions? That was funny.
Hair and singing. 80s hair, who had the better hair?
Wow, you know, we had such different hair. I had an abundance of hair there that I miss. I miss the fullness. You know what? I had the best brown hair and he had the best blonde hair. That's what I would say.
Very diplomatic.
How's that for a politician? And singing, I would give myself, I would give him the Eye of the Tiger, and I will take, take it on the run. I would take the REO Speedwagon. I got the higher register. But he kicked ass in the Eye of the Tiger, and we had fun with Yuji Okamoto, who was chosen, who's freaking awesome as well. It's crazy. That's great. That was a great surprise. That was awesome.
He's a good one, your friend. Let's see if this audience has some amazing questions for Mr. Ralph Macchio. There should be a couple mic stands on either aisle. If you guys want to scurry on up and ask a few questions before we run out of time, we'll pick Ralph's brain. Murmur of the crowd, murmur of the crowd. All right. Go ahead. Yes.
I've had this question from before. You might have answered some of it, but what was your favorite Karate Kid to shoot, and what was your least favorite?
What was my favorite Karate Kid movie to shoot, and what was my least favorite?
Yeah, which one did you enjoy the most, and which was your...
The first one, the original, by far the most, because that's where all the magic happened, and that story, and, you know, I mean, just the birth of the chores paying off his karate moves, the magic of the crane kick, all that, the cinema, just that experience. Part two was fun because we were in Hawaii for 3 months, But I was busier at that time, and so I was a little homesick. And part 3 was not nearly as pleasant as those two.
Distant third.
Distant third.
Let's go to my left. Yes, what's your question? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, can you talk a little bit more about My Cousin Vinny, and specifically when you're going for the puppy slush and you say, can you fill this up?
Wait, say that again. I'm going to talk about My Cousin Vinny, but what was the end of the question?
When you go for the slush puppy and you say, can you fill this up?
Can you fill this up?
I love that. It's my favorite.
That's
the best.
total Macchio. That's so me to say, like, even if I'm at a movie theater now, as we're slowly but surely starting to get back, and I get a popcorn handed and it's not topped off, I'm like, seriously?
Can you fill this up?
I mean, this is air. You're charging $15 for this, and it costs you 20 cents. Fill it up. So it's a little bit of Macchio sprinkled in Billy Gambini. I love My Cousin Vinny. It's one I'm super proud to be a part of. That's for sure. And I did not shoot the clerk. Okay. But I am one of the 2 Utes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ralph. I have 2 things for you. First one's a question. Going back to earlier in the show, you were saying how with Karate Kid 3, you didn't really enjoy how Daniel's story didn't move forward. And going into Cobra Kai with characters portraying like Marty Cove and Thomas Ian, how did it feel to see this character progress, along with juxtaposing against those characters?
How did it feel playing against Terry Silver, Thomas Ian Griffith?
Yeah.
It's been incredible. I mean, his take on adding layers to that character, the writing that the guys, that John, Josh, and Hayden, and they do this with every character in the show, and every original. Look at what they did with Yuji Okamoto in Chosen. The ultimate nemesis in part 2 is Miyagi-Do friend, and but working with Thomas, he's so he has such attention to detail. He loves leaning into the heightenedness of it, but he does not play the cartoon of it, where he felt the cartoon of it was a part of what Karate Kid 3 was, and he's very conscious of that. He's a black belt. He's a true martial artist, and he's 6'5" and very difficult to fight. But he's just a sweetheart of a guy. I'm so happy for him and all the folks that get to come back and taste the wine again.
Let's go over, we can try to get through as many of these as possible. Go over here, yep.
Hello. I have 2 questions. What's your
Get one question, one question.
Okay. So the one question that I really want to know is, Cobra Kai has been having a lot of like twists and things coming up. What do you want to see next on Cobra Kai that hasn't been done yet, that you'd like to work on or see?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, we truthfully, we have not been picked up for season 6 yet, which we think should happen very soon. But keep watching, keep those numbers going. But I think they teed up the international element that could happen, so it might be interesting to maybe get out of the valley. I did get in season 3. I got to go to Okinawa, which was spectacular. I think expanding on that. I think for LaRusso, season 5 was a really good season to see him slip and fall and lose a grip on everything in his life, only to have everyone have his back and him be that protagonist again, just like he was in the Karate Kid franchise. His kids are getting older. The life is getting more challenging. All areas of that. And I just love working with these people. So I gave nothing there with that answer, except let's keep making it. And thanks to you guys, we get to do it.
I think we need to go to the next question. I just want to get as many people as possible.
Can I just hand this off to Ralph, because I saw him at Comic-Con. He wanted
Why don't you, could you drop it with maybe one of the ushers, and we'll do our best to get to it, Ralph?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Did the guest appearance on How I Met Your Mother have anything to do with the start of Cobra Kai?
It's a great question. The How I Met Your Mother was a blast, and credit the writers in the writers' room. And I do a whole thing. I write a whole thing about how that came about for me and everything else. John, Josh, and Hayden always say No, it wasn't. It wasn't the How I Met Your Mother at all that made them have the idea. They had the idea years back. They just didn't know how to do it. It was at a point that there weren't streaming services and there wasn't the Netflixes or Amazons of the world where you could tell a 5-hour story in 10 half-hour parts. So, but it was in the zeitgeist, and these writers were, thinking of it. I love the whole Barney Stinson of it all. That that LaRusso is some skinny Jersey brat who deserved nothing, and Johnny Lawrence is the true Karate Kid. When I first saw that, I was like, "What?" It's fun.
All right, let's
Go ahead, Greaser.
Hello.
Good shirt.
Thank you. I was just wondering, because I heard that you had very good chemistry with a lot of your castmates on The Outsiders, and I was just wondering if you have any memories that you would like to share with us.
Oh, The Outsiders was super special to me. I mean, I got close with Matt Dillon for a while. He was my New York buddy. I'm such a fan of his, and I remember running lines with him for the barbecue, the Dairy Queen scene that we had to shoot 2 days on that. We had to pick it up a second day, and I just remember being in his hotel room, and I was just running lines, and he was like, "You're the most professional actor I ever worked with." And I'm like, "No, I just want to learn the lines. Aren't we supposed to learn the lines?" I didn't think I was so professional, because he was so great at improvising and his raw talent. And then C. Thomas Howell, we spent a lot of time together, getting on each other's nerves as two guys working every single day. And now he's such a good friend of mine, and it's awesome. I just did Rob Lowe's podcast. If you haven't heard it, that's up right now. It's talking about the Waxing On book. It's a kindred spirit with all those guys. And Diane Lane. Let's not forget the spectacular Diane Lane.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more. This is going to be our last question, guys. Yep.
Hi, Ralph. My name's Monica. Definitely wanted you to know my name, even if you forget it.
Okay, Monica.
Oh my God, you did not just say that. I know there's probably a lot of people in the world who felt like a Daniel LaRusso, but I was wondering, were there any moments on set that you've done a scene with maybe Xolo Maridueña, Mary Mouser, or Tanner Buchanan where you've seen pieces of yourself or pieces of Daniel in them and felt sort of proud?
Great question, and I write to that as well. Yes, yes, and yes. The beauty of doing Cobra Kai, and something I was not expecting, was that emotional connection with these young actors that each have moments that are so beautifully mirrored by the writing staff of things that happened to Daniel LaRusso in the original Karate Kid franchise. Miguel is essentially the millennial Daniel LaRusso. And Samantha, as my daughter, played by Mary Mouser, gets to mirror, they walk in the same shoes, and there are really strong moments that I get to explain, say, in season 3, I think, when he talks about fear getting in the way, and that he's been there, and sort of I've walked in your shoes, and sharing those moments. Or with Robbie, Tanner Buchanan, with doing the chores in the backyard, and this waxing the car, and saying, those were emotional moments for me, because those are the pieces of magic that created the Karate Kid universe, if you will. And here I am now, not 21 years old anymore, and watching them stand in my shoes and me in the shoes of Miyagi or the not his younger characters. Okay, the old guy. All right, say it out loud. It's really wonderful, and some of my favorite things, components in doing the show. And these kids are so talented. They're awesome. Their martial arts is awesome, and they're emotional. Xolo had a great season with season 5, I thought, and Mary as well. Awesome question. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Question. Well, we are sadly just about out of time. I do want to say, you carry the mantle of this amazing franchise so well, and it's so beautiful to see just all the connections from the beginning to where we are now, and it's going to continue clearly in some fashion, hopefully more Cobra Kai, and who knows beyond that. I want to thank this amazing crowd. I want to thank Symphony Space, guys. Make sure to check out, they do amazing programming day after day. Check out what they've got here. And I want to encourage all of you to check out this great book. This is honestly, we touched on like 3% of this book. Waxing On is the book from Mr. Ralph Macchio. Let's give it up one more time for Mr. Ralph.
Thank you, guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you, man. Thank you.